ice-breaking session. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is going to be a very informal kind of thing because creative writing in itself doesn't adhere to formality as such. So there are basically three rules. I mean, I say it's going to be informal and I say there are rules, but like, okay, let's say guidelines. There are three guidelines. One is please interact. It would really mean so much to me to hear from you guys as well. Two is don't agree with everything I say. I think one of the biggest things to be any kind of creative thinker is to be like, oh, but why are you saying this? Do I agree with you? And number three is I am comfortable conversing in both Hindi and English. So if you feel more comfortable asking questions in Hindi, please go ahead and do that. Yes, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with a question. What do you guys think creative writing is? What do you think creative is? Let's start with that, creative.
Unique.
I'm sorry again?
Creative means to express yourself in a rather unusual or unique way, something that you feel free to express yourself in.
Right. So the words I'm hearing are unusual and unique. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay, yes. Yes.
And we can think of beyond our imagination in creative writing.
Okay. That's great. Yes, beyond our imagination. Anyone else? No. Okay, so we have three words here: unusual, unique, and beyond our imagination. I would say that the similarity in these three words is that they're all talking about something new. Would you say that creative writing is original, or do you disagree with that? Okay, wait, one by one, please. Yes, agree or disagree. Agree, hands up. Is it original? Okay. Disagree, hands up. Oh, no naysayers. Okay, so originality. You hear this a lot, and I'm pretty sure as students, you're always, you're always asked to be original. But what do we mean when we say original? So largely, there are two kinds of thoughts here. One is that there is originality, that it exists in this world, that something absolutely new can come out even now at any point, at any place and time. But the second school of thought, which I find more interesting personally, is that there's nothing original under the sun. It's everything exists, and what's original is finding patterns like that haven't been identified before. For example, say that you're scared and you had to write that, hey, I'm scared. What are the words that you would use? Fear, yes. And afraid and frightened, terrified, yes. Okay, so these are all words. Now, if I told you to talk about fear without using these words, how would you describe it?
It's something
Yeah, someone was saying something. It's something that I heard that. Who, not to pinpoint, but I can't really hear you guys if you guys don't speak up.
And by our expressions.
Your expressions. Okay, now if you had to write it, I'm telling you, tell somebody you're scared, but you can't write any of these words: terrified, fear, afraid, nothing of this sort. How are you going to tell them you're scared?
expressions, body language.
Right? But you have to write it. You have to write it. And so what are you going to write?
Emojis.
Yes, that's a good one. That's actually a good one. Emojis, yes. That is creative. You could draw it probably. Anything else?
Fear is something that our mind or body is not able to tolerate, or maybe
Right.
we are not able to sense it or cannot take it. Our body or our
Right.
mind cannot take it.
So you are overwhelmed, in another word.
Yes.
So see, you did it. You said fear without saying fear. And I think a lot of originality in creative writing is just this. Like, think about things in ways, like, don't allow yourself to use the words that you're comfortable using. So for instance, if I asked you, what does happiness taste like? Right? We usually were like, oh, we're so happy, I'm glad, I'm joyful, I'm smiling. But if I asked you, what does happiness taste like? What would you say?
It's like our favorite dish, maybe. Or
Right?
maybe
Right? It tastes like your favorite dish. What else?
It's something that I never tasted. I mean, something very
Oh.
new to me.
Oh, damn.
The world seems to be lovely.
I'm sorry, again, please.
The world seems to be lovely.
The world seems to be lovely. Yes. So, do you see what you're doing? You're talking about your feelings through. Okay, guys. Do we know the five sensory? What are they called? The touch, feel, looking at things, smelling things, feeling things. Yeah. So basically, I would challenge you to think about things through sensations other than what you usually do. Because it's very easy to say words and not completely even mean them or know what they mean, for instance. Like, you just said that, happiness is something new to me. I haven't felt, but like, I'm pretty sure so many times in your life have been like, oh yeah, I'm happy, I'm good, I'm fine. But so I would say that something that would be very interesting to do would be, put yourself in situations and then ask yourself to describe what you're feeling without using the words of how you would say you're feeling. So I'm going to give everyone a situation now, okay? Let's say that you just lost your bet, okay? But on the same day that you lost your bet, you also got your board marks and you scored like brilliantly. And so tell me how you're feeling without using the words grief, confusion, and loss. These are banned words. Now, how are you going to tell me? Emojis are acceptable. I will say that. Did I hear something?
I'm acknowledged.
I'm sorry, again, please.
I'm acknowledged.
Wait. Can someone repeat that for me? I can't hear her at all.
she said to say astonished.
Oh, astonished. Oh, yes, good. But would you say astonished? Would you say that it adequately captures the sadness that you're going to feel when your pet has died? Because isn't astonished like positively connotated? Oh, I'm astonished, like in a good way. You're surprised in a good way. But that is a good word choice for it. I guess you would feel confused about like, wow, मेरी life में हो रहा है ये सब. Anyone else?
Crying in happiness.
Crying in happiness. That's interesting. That's interesting because nobody knows what the tears are. I mean, you're happy and you're sad, so you're crying in happiness. Yes, that's a good one. So, anyone else, or should we move on? Anyone else? Okay, moving on it is. So the reason I'm asking you to do these things is because I am assuming all of you are interested in creative writing because you're sitting here. And I think one of the things that you learn when you start writing is that you need a language for things, like your own language, and you have to figure that out for yourself. So for instance, you know how when babies are born, how many of you have little siblings? Younger siblings, younger brothers or sisters? Oh, quite a lot. Oh, older children, I see. So I don't know how old you were when they were born. Probably in your family too, you would say that, you know how when babies are born and for the first few months, when they cry, there's no way for you to figure out what is wrong. Do they need a diaper change? Do they need food? Do they need sleep? Do they need like water? Like we don't know what's going on because they don't have the words to tell us, right? And they're simply crying. But as they grow up, they learn the words to ask for things and to be cared for. And so I want you to think of language as a way of asking the world to care for you and, caring for the world in return. And so I would say that to write, read everything you can get your hands on. Like, there's some very interesting authors out there who use language in very interesting ways. And honestly, when I was your age, I wasn't this open. I would just read my little Percy Jackson and Harry Potter series. Like I never read anything else, which is not good. But the more you read, the more you understand how people use language and how language can become yours in the ways that you use it. It's not always necessary for people to understand what you are saying, as long as you understand it. And I know this is a controversial take because a lot of the times we're told that, well, language is to communicate with others. And I agree with that. It is, but it's also a way to communicate with yourself, like to check in with yourself to see, how am I feeling about this? Or how would I, describe myself right now? And I would say that, small things that you can do in your everyday thing, write a few lines. I would say every day, but I don't want to make it like I honestly, it's very difficult to do things every day. And so I don't want it to become work. Writing should not be work. And but every time you feel like you're feeling something new or unfamiliar, I would suggest that you pick up a pen and you're like, okay, well, and no restrictions. I can write whatever I want. I can write without punctuation. You can try that once. It'll be interesting, I bet. You can write without capitalizing things. So these are things that you could try out with yourself or be like, okay, this is a word I use a lot. For example, I used to use like a lot. I used to be like, oh, so like, and then like. And so I was like, no, you're not going to use like. And that's something that I did with myself. I was like, you're not going to use like unless it's absolutely necessary. You have a minimum 3 likes per page. And these are things that just make it interesting. So writing isn't like, like journaling isn't like a core as such. It's not work. It's not like a daily, oh, ab mujhe jaake wahan pe likhna hai kuch, oh god, fir se ye karu main. But it shouldn't be like that. It should be something that you enjoy. And I think that's on you. And I honestly don't think with the kind of like schedules you guys have that you have time for any other work because you guys are pretty busy. Like academia and extracurriculars take up a lot of your time. So I would say, put that into me time. Don't put that into like, oh, something else I have to do time. So that is something that I would recommend. So these are some exercises that you could try. I can also send it in writing after the session, some examples of work that you could do. Okay, so moving on to the second part, the not so creative writing part of it, is, how I told you that to write, you need to read. You need to read. You need to understand how language works. And so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. What do you guys read? Generally, just tell me what you've read for the, like, I don't know, last few months or whatever. It could be course books too. I don't discriminate. Yes.
Novels of Roald Dahl.
Novels of what? I'm sorry.
Novels of Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl. Oh, Roald Dahl was so good. Roald Dahl's novels. Which ones did you read?
Ma'am, I have read BFG, then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Witches, and
The Witches was so interesting. BFG was also really nice. See, BFG. Has anyone else read BFG? Yes. Very interesting. We will talk about that later. Someone else wanted to say what they've read. I think that, yes, please. Tintin. Oh, interesting thing. You know what they call Tintin in French? It's originally a French work, by the way. It's been translated into English, and they call Tintin Tete in French. My life has not been the same since I knew that. But moving on. Anyone else? What have you read? Yes.
I just finished Percy's Action and I'm currently reading a book called Tornado Jesus.
Okay, wait. After Percy Jackson, what are you reading?
Tornado Jesus.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. Interesting. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's about children breaking through of their, parents thinking that their children are so small, but taking that from that scenario that they're not children anymore. They're capable of making their own choices and free from, the constant telling of do's and don'ts.
Oh, right. That is a very interesting book. Anyone else? Yes.
Ma'am, I have read Enid Blyton books like Famous Five, Secret Seven, Five Outers.
Oh, yes, they're all very interesting. Mysteries, right? All of them. Anyone else? No? Yes.
I also like to read the series of Goosebumps.
Oh, Goosebumps. Honestly, you're so brave for that. Some of them are really freaky. I remember reading them when I was like in 8th or something, and I read 2 and I was like, this is not for me. I am not the target audience. Someone braver is, and that is you. So congratulations. But okay, so we've read a lot. I mean, this is a great, diverse, I would say, mostly fiction list, but interesting. So I would ask you, what are some things that you notice when you read a book? For example, you're in a bookshop and you see a book. What is something that you'd be like, oh, I might buy that, or I might not buy that?
An interesting name, maybe?
Interesting name, yes.
Something more of fiction than non-fiction.
Okay, fiction.
Interesting pictures on the.
Interesting pictures.
The style of writing.
So you'd pick that book up and read a couple of pages and like figure out if you like the style of writing.
The first line would.
That's the writer's name.
Wait, I'm sorry, what was that?
The writer's
Author.
name, like author.
Oh, the author. So if it's an author you like, you would pick it up. Okay. Anyone else?
The summary at the back of the cover.
Oh, the cover, the book cover.
The
Summary
book
written
review.
at the back.
Yeah.
Oh, the summary and okay. Do you guys notice anything when you read the summary?
They
The
give
story
pretty much
gives the-
layout of what is going to happen in the book. Some interesting lines of the book are mentioned.
Interesting. On the back. Okay. Quotes are mentioned on the back. What else?
Feedback from other readers.
Okay. Feedback from other readers. Someone was saying ma'am name or something.
they also keep interesting lines and some suspense for the stories.
Okay, suspense for these stories. It shouldn't tell you everything.
Ratings can also matter.
Writing style,
Ratings.
ratings. Yes, yes, ratings. Yes, I'm sorry. What was that?
Cost of the book.
The price.
Oh, yes, yes, I agree with you. Books are so costly nowadays. Okay, so we have very interesting things, quotes, feedback from other readers. How exactly are you getting this feedback, by the way? Like talking to your friends, internet?
I mean, a lot of sources, but even in the front, there's like compliments for the writer or the book.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Okay, so in that way, okay. And that it shouldn't tell the whole story, the rating reviews, which is similar to the feedback, and the cost, very important. Okay, so when you guys pick up a book, you see the ratings and the reviews, you see, you know how it's written that, well, New York bestseller, or or that this author says that this book is great and you should read it. And do you think that helps personally? Would you do you read it and you're like, oh well, I mean, if this author is saying it's a good book, it might be a good book.
Yeah, because they are pretty good judge. Yes, older people are pretty good judge of what children should read or
Not read. Okay. Okay, so I have an exercise for you. I need 2 volunteers, please. I need to. I saw your hand, but I'm not going to pressure you. Yes. 1 and 2. Yes. Okay. Now, what I want is, I want one of you, you can decide which one, to very roughly design like a cover page, give a title, okay? And whatever you see on the front page of books. You can draw a circle and write the circle by whatever. You can do whatever you want. But you have to give me a front page and then you pass it to her. And then she has to see the front page and write a small blurb or whatever you guys think is on the back cover of books. And then you're going to share it with the class. Is there any questions? She's like, oh my God, what did it? Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to design the front page of a book. So what do you think comes on the front page? The title, the author name, maybe a 1-line review, maybe an illustration, anything that you think would be on a front page of a book. And then you can pass it to her and she's going to look at your front page and she's going to decide what is going to go on the back page of the book. Yeah? Okay, till these guys are doing this, just what do you guys know about genre? Have you guys thought about genre? Like someone said, I think in this class only, that what we read is mostly fiction. What do you think fiction is? Imaginary, right? And when you say fiction, is it by any means a way of like categorizing books? Like, you know how you guys are sorted into sections and classes? Maybe is fiction one way to do that, to sort books?
Yes. Fiction, non-fiction, semi-fiction.
Yes, fiction, non-fiction, semi-fiction. Okay. So when you think about genre, fiction, or like say non-fiction, what do you think of it as, say, a label, or do you think of it as like a way to market a book, or both?
Can you repeat?
Like when you see fiction, so you walk into a bookstore and you know how they have like the different labels, like fiction, non-fiction, autobiography, travel writing. And so do you think it is a way for do you think it might be a way of like marketing a book, perhaps?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what do you do now? Say you're a bookstore owner and somebody writes a book about their life, and then they're like, they put their name in it and they say that, well, I mean, it's not completely true. Where do you put it? Do you put it in fiction? Do you put it in biography? Do you put it in nonfiction?
Biography.
Even after they say it's not completely true?
It's fiction. Fictional autobiography.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that genre is a very fluid thing. Like, there are a lot of thoughts about what fiction is. Even if it is imaginary, it's not something unimaginable, right? Like when you're reading BFG, for example, I was, as a kid, pretty convinced that, yeah, we had a giant blowing dreams into our bedrooms. That made sense to me. And nobody saw him. And, the giant lived like us and and he was bullied by other giants. So the world that the giant lived in was not unimaginary. It was not something that you couldn't picture in your head or be like, well, this doesn't make any sense. In the course of the story, everything made perfect sense. And so when you talk about fiction, you're not essentially talking about what is so out of the blue, so unimaginary that you can't even think about it. So fiction is essentially taken from real life, right? And that is how genre gets confused, because genre is a very important marketing strategy in books. It's a way to appeal to a certain audience. For instance, people who read fiction would go to the fiction label in the bookstore. Children would go to the label that says, oh, teenage or like what, young adult or children's books, you know? And so, but at the same time, you read some of these children's books, like David Copperfield, you read Matilda, and they are so sad. Like, why are we letting kids read this, right? They're so tragic and everybody dies. And I read Black Beauty when I was really young, and I remember sobbing my eyes out because how could they treat a horse like that? But it's a children's book, so it is fine to traumatize a child like that. And so in this way, you have to understand that genre is so fluid, and it's mostly by like, like this kind of like agreement between people, which is like, oh, well, you know what? I think this is a children's book because there's nothing adult in it. And people are like, oh yeah. So ignoring the fact that it deals with really complex issues of like, say, for Black Beauty, animal abuse, or for Matilda, issues of like the state taking care of orphans and just the system in general. So they completely ignore that the books are about these big issues, and instead, like, put it on the children's because it is about a child. So when you think about these things, it's actually pretty frustrating. And I want you guys to like, go back to your bookshelves and be like, well, I mean, the book says it is this, but is it that actually? Is it a child's book? Is it fiction, really? And I think that would be a very like interesting thing to do, because I think this is a good age to start understanding that genre is just a very convenient means of classifying things. For example, you guys are sorted into sections. It doesn't really mean that everyone in one section is the same person, does it? You're all different people. And so I want you to start thinking of books like that too. And it will also make what you read so much more interesting. Yeah, one thing that I would really suggest is just reading a lot and reading critically, questioning what you read. I think a big thing of like being a writer of any sort is this ability to keep saying why. You know how kids do it, like, oh, it's raining today. Why is it raining? Well, I guess that's how the water cycle works. Why does the water cycle work that way? And then you take your whys to an end where you're like, well, I don't know. That's just how it is. And the minute you say that's just how it is, that's where you stop and you're like, is that just how it is, or is that just how I think it is? And then, you think about these things. So like these are things that, I mean, I kind of also get why currently at your age you might be a little tired to do these things, because you're intellectually engaging around 5, 6. How long is your school time? 7 hours, 6 hours? 7. So you're intellectually engaging like what, good 7 hours a day. And so like uske upar se bhi, like you are demanding things from your brain, so thoda zyada ho jayega. But like just like do these little things with yourself, like inculcate these habits of like questioning things, and it's going to be frustrating, but it's going to be, I think, very productive in the long run to always be questioning things. My throat is gone. Have you guys finished?
I have drawn the front cover. She's just writing as what the book is going to be at
The blurb is okay, cool. Does anyone want to say anything while they're doing that? Any book you read that's interesting you want to tell me about? Or any book you read that was not good and you're like, well, that was a waste of my money? No? Yes? Okay, poetry. What do we think about poetry?
Ma'am, it's an art of writing poems.
Yeah. But what do you think about poetry? When you read a poem, you're like, oh, this is good. Or are you like, what is going on? What is this person saying? How do you feel about poetry?
Very
You don't
confusing.
have to understand everything in a poetry. Is just what it makes you feel is what that matters, right? Because everybody has a
Right.
different meaning of words. Like if I think big means a building, and if someone thinks big means a giant, they have different perception. But main thing is what the writer is going to say is like what it makes you feel the most important.
So you're basically saying that it doesn't matter what the poet means. The poet can write whatever. It depends on me what I decide to feel about it. Yeah?
Ma'am, it can also be defined as to write something in a beautiful way which can make our heart bounce or skip a beat.
Oh, that's an interesting expression. Make your heart bounce, skip a beat. Do you guys know what metaphors are? Yes, I'm assuming it's a yes because you all are in 7th and 9th. So have you ever noticed how we never even question the fact that, the heart is the repository of feelings, that the heart stores all feelings, when in reality it's just an organ doing its best. It's your brain that has these. But no, it's my heart hurts. Oh, my heart is like, bouncing with joy, or like when you're excited or nervous, you're like, oh, my heart's skipping a beat. And why do you think that is? Why do you think feelings are just in the heart?
Because we were always told like that.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's how we grew up. We were just like, oh, this is what your heart is feeling like. I don't know what to say to you, but yes.
And sudden happiness can also give us that realization.
Yeah. Yes. And the reason why the heart is the repository of all feelings is because it reacts to what you feel through your brain, basically. So, you know how we talked about earlier, how would you say fear without saying, I feel terrified or I feel afraid? You could say, oh, I started breathing really fast, my heart started beating really fast, my hands were trembling and sweating. And so you would understand, oh, you're feeling fear. So the physical symptoms of a feeling can also describe a feeling without saying the feeling. Like you're too scared to say I'm scared, but you're just like, oh, well, my heart's beating really fast and my hands are sweating and also shaking. So I guess I might be scared or worried. Right? So these are things that are very interesting to think about, just like these metaphors that, again, like we just grew up with because people told us that's how it works, but there's usually always a reason for that. Are you guys done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, share it with the class, please, and show it to me also so I can see.
small, so you might not be able to see it.
Can you get it to the camera like that?
It's like pretty small. You can just look at it.
Oh. Oh yes, you will be reading that to me.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty. Yes. Please read it to the class more than to me.
Okay. Should I read the front cover too, because I've written something on the front cover?
Yes, absolutely.
In that top, like in the front top, it's a good read, and then after there's a quote, always be kinder than necessary. Then there's a picture of a backside of a girl, and at the back there's going to be like more books or the series or other books that the author has written. And my friend there, she wrote, Amy, a girl, goes on adventure where she goes on adventure where she undergoes a test of kindness. Read read to find out more. And the below that is the price.
Yes, very good. Very good. So you guys wrote a review, you guys wrote a small blurb, you did the little picture. Anyone else? What else would you have put on the book? People from the class, except these two. They did a great job, but what would you guys have put? Added or subtracted?
We will write reviews from other people.
Reviews from other people? Okay.
Author's name?
I'm sorry.
Author's name?
Author's name, yes. Crucial detail, it is true. Anyone else?
If any newspaper or any very popular magazine have
Reviewed
said
it?
yes, that we will write the first line or a summary in one line about that.
Okay. So would you write a good review or would you write a bad review also? Like say a review was like, well, it's a good book, but it's not that great. What part of it would you choose to write that? And say like the New York Times says that. So
Have a good review will be a better choice.
yeah.
But the thing is, you have to be honest, because to give the honest opinions of people, because honest opinion does matter a lot. But like, you should get all the
Ma'am, we should give a review like if we are not satisfied with the book, but say in a way that the author or the like it don't go in a negative way. But
yeah, you have to be polite.
And both
But
the author and
mainly, generally the author would not like to tell the bad reviews of the book because financially and
I mean,
Popularity
I
also.
write the book,
popularity will
I
also
would not
be
add a bad review because that will put an effect on the market.
Ma'am, the magazine and both the author and the magazine who have written or some other publisher who have written, both of them must not be criticized.
Okay. Would you consider lying on the book?
ma'am, we should not write in a criticizing way of the author.
We should not criticize the author or the book.
We should
Because
be polite and gentle.
we can just be polite and give an honest opinion. Like if someone likes the book, the content, they would read it any like even though the review might not be, because people have different way of taking things, and so it's not necessarily the person, if the person does not have a good review, they will still might read it. So you should just give an honest opinion,
but in a polite manner.
yeah.
Not criticizing.
Okay. So you should be polite, but you should be honest, right? Now take this situation and say you have to review a book where they've painted the Nazis as the good guys and the Jews as the bad guys. What are you saying about it?
What? Repeat.
Can you please repeat?
Nazis the good guys, the Jews the bad guys. That's the book. And what are you saying about it? And you're supposed to review it.
No.
Are you going to be polite? about first of all, yes, I love that. Just no, I'm not gonna review it. No, I refuse to do that. Yes. But if you had to say, like, if you had to, absolutely had to review it, would you still be polite about saying, well, this is not okay?
That's what the art of creative writing is, without being harsh, but saying that I'm not liking it, but being
Right.
polite at the same time.
Right. Which is so great to hear that you guys are so big on politeness, because a lot of people aren't. And so if you actually read a lot of reviews, and some people are just downright cruel in their writing of um, reviews. So it's great that you guys, believe that politeness is the way to go. That's really nice to hear. But also, again, back to the book cover. Say you guys were like, oh, we'll put good reviews, but we'll also be honest. So say if the New York Times says it's a great book, it's a good book, but it's not great, would you consider embellishing? You would just put it's a good book, the New York Times, because technically that's not a lie, is it? Would you feel comfortable doing that, or would you be like, no, let's not do it?
I will rather choose another opinion than cut the part of the opinion.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, am I? Hello.
Bisha. Yeah.
Yes.
Time check. You have another 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you were saying that you would rather take another opinion, even if it wasn't from someone as popular.
Somebody's opinion, right? Yes, no. We can't consult their opinion. We have, if we are going to give the opinion, we have to give the full opinion, or just don't
Right.
write.
Right. That's unethical. That's true. Good. You passed the morality test. But questions. We have 5 minutes, so I will be taking any questions. You can ask me about anything, because this has been it's been covering a lot of things. So if you want to ask me about like exercises you could do daily for writing, or if you ask me about like anything about the publishing industry, anything at all, if you want to know about, are you planning on studying literature? What would it be like? Anything. So the last 5 minutes are question and answer. So shoot.
You mentioned before that you read Black Beauty, a
Yes.
novel that I have to read. And what was it? I have read it many times. What was your first, what was the first thought when you completed the book?
I was sad. I was immeasurably sad for the animals and the lack of stability in their life. And I was like, if I have a pet, I will never, ever leave it. I never had a pet, but yes, I was very sad. And I feel like I felt a lot of empathy towards the horses that were just used and abandoned. What about you? What did you feel?
I felt that the horse, the Black Beauty, was a very strong, horse, because even after all that she endured, she still was herself, and she did not lose her identity even after experiencing all those things that she had to go through. And
Right.
it's just phrase that you have to carry yourself even after you experience a lot of things. You just have to carry yourself such that you inspire me.
Right. That is a great takeaway. Anyone else? Any questions? Yes. Yes.
Any author that is prescribed by you. I mean, like, a author can be prescribed by you.
That you
Oh.
like.
That I like. I feel like you guys have already said the books that I like. You guys have read Percy Jackson. I was a big fan of Roald Dahl. I read all of his works. I did read Tintin too. I read the Asterix comics. I read a lot of abridged classics. So what abridged classics like Black Beauty are, that they simplify the language in them. And so it's easier to understand for children. So I read Black Beauty. I read Hunchback of Notre Dame. I read other things, which 10,000 miles, 10,000 feet under the sea, something of that sort. Moby Dick too. So I read all these things, and I read Enid Blyton too, Five Fine Outers, all these things. So I basically, everything you guys are reading, I also read that. So I would just continue reading. And I'm sure there are a lot of new authors as well that are like writing for children or like young adults.
Can you please recommend some new authors for us?
Okay, I will do my research and I will send a list to Mr. Bishal and he will convey it to you if that's okay, because off the top of my head, I really couldn't. Yeah? Okay. Anyone else? I think someone from the side had raised their hand. Yes.
What advice or thing you will give to a beginner who wants to become a creative writer?
The advice that I would give is write as much as you can. Write anything and everything. Write poetry, write bad poetry, write, reimagine movie endings, reimagine book endings and write them for yourself. And like I said, like try to challenge yourself. If you use a word a lot, be like, I will not use this word while writing. Or if you want to convey a certain emotion, tell yourself, well, I won't name the emotion, but I'll try to see if I can still put it through. And so I would say just make it a habit, even if it's not daily. Anytime you feel something new or unfamiliar, you guys are at the age of feeling a lot of new and unfamiliar things. So anytime you feel something, I would suggest write it down. Just write it down. It's really helpful to build your language, to build the way that you understand yourself. Yes.
There are situations when we are not able to portray what we feel when we are writing. So, what to do at that point of time?
I would suggest, so personally, in my opinion, I think that these situations that are not not expressible in a way is because we put restrictions on ourselves. That in your head, you're thinking that, okay, this situation happened and I have to write it in a certain way, because there is a part of you that is perhaps a little scared of what will come out on the page because of how overwhelming, the feelings are of, or how, terrible the situation is. And so you're scared of, what truth am I going to uncover when I write it? And I would say push through that. There is nothing that you can't express. It might be true that you can't express it to your satisfaction or fully, but you can express it. Even if it's a bad expression, it is an expression. And I think it's really important to give yourself the room to write badly, write terrible, like just read it and be like, what have I written? But write, just keep writing. And yes, you.
Yeah, no, I think we need to have a hard time check. So that the discussion has started. So would you like to sum it up? So you have 1 minute. Sum it up.
I don't have anything to sum up. I summed up everything in the 45 minutes. So basically, I would say keep writing, keep reading. It's very important that you keep reading and keep asking questions, keep analyzing things. Do not take things at their face value. Metaphors that you use in your daily language, like the heart thing we talked about, fiction, genre, is this actually fiction? You know, Bother yourself, actually be annoying to yourself with your questions. Keep asking questions and keep writing, and keep challenging yourself is what I would say. And it has also been so great to have this space, and I would like to thank Mr. Vishal and all of you for interacting. Thank you so much. I will hopefully see you soon in some capacity, and I will be sending a list of the books that I would recommend for 7th and 9th graders. Am I right? Yes. Okay, yes.
So thank you, Swadha. It was a
Thank you.
brilliant session. I'll take a feedback from them also. So thank
Okay,
you.
yes, please. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, boys and girls, move because this person started. How was it?
Brilliant.
So I checked with Santosh sir and said that our boys were and girls were